سنای آمریکا، سالن تاریخی کندی. کنفرانس با حضور سناتورهای ارشد و شخصیت‌های برجسته آمریکایی. سیاست جدید ایالات متحده در رابطه با ایران، مسئله. فراخوان به اتخاذ سیاستی قاطع در قبال نقض حقوق بشر، برنامه موشکی و مداخلات رژیم آخوندی، حمایت از مبارزه مردم و مقاومت ایران علیه استبداد دینی.
در کنفرانسی در سالن تاریخی کندی سنای آمریکا تحت عنوان سیاست جدید ایالات متحده در رابطه با ایران، مسیر پیش رو، سناتورهای ارشد از هر دو حزب و شخصیت‌های برجسته آمریکایی آخرین تحولات مربوط به ایران و سیاست صحیح برای پاسخ دادن به نقض حقوق بشر مردم ایران، جنایات رژیم در منطقه و برنامه موشکی حکومت آخوندی را مورد بحث و بررسی قرار دادند. این کنفرانس توسط سازمان جوامع ایرانیان در آمریکا برگزار شد و طیف وسیعی از مشاوران سناتورها و سفرا و هیئت‌های دیپلماتیک کشورهای اروپایی و خاورمیانه نیز در آن حضور پیدا کردند. سخنرانان کنفرانس در سنای آمریکا عبارت بودند از نیوت گینگریچ، کاندیدای ریاست جمهوری و رئیس پیشین کنگره آمریکا، ژنرال جیمز جونز، اولین مشاور امنیت ملی اوباما و فرمانده پیشین ناتو، سناتور بن کاردین، رئیس دموکرات‌ها در کمیته روابط خارجی سنای آمریکا، سناتور جان بوزمن، سناتور ارشد ایالت آرکانزاس در مجلس سنا از حزب جمهوری خواه، سفیر لینکلن بلومفیلد، مدیر کل پیشین وزارت خارجه آمریکا در امور سیاسی نظامی. در شروع جلسه دکتر فیروز دانشگری، رئیس دانشگاه کیس وسترن ریزرو، طی سخنانی از طرف سازمان جوامع ایرانیان در آمریکا ضمن خوشامدگویی به حاضران به تشریح تظاهرات و حرکت‌های اعتراضی در شهرهای مختلف ایران علیه رژیم آخوندی پرداخت. وی در ادامه گفت:
The fact is Iranian people want fundamental change. They want a system of governance that is truly representative of the population. We Iranian people want a government that respects our basic human rights, believes in gender parity, freedom of religion, equality of all ethnicities, rejects death penalty, and above all, nuclear weapons. We do not need nuclear weapons in our country. A government that instead of inciting terror and violence in the neighboring countries is interested in living in peace and harmony with its neighbors. That is an Iran which the principal Iranian opposition coalition, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, has been working to bring about for more than 3 decades, throughout most of my adult life. These ideas and aspirations are underscored in the 10-point plan of the future of Iran, articulated by Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, the president-elect of the NCRI. We are going to hear from Mrs. Rajavi, the president-elect of the NCRI, who will have her video message from Paris with us. Let's watch together.
خانم رجوی در پیام خود خطاب به شرکت کنندگان در کنفرانس در سنای آمریکا گفت:
Please allow me to raise an important question. Is there a solution for the ongoing crisis in the Middle East? Or we have to accept the status quo as a reality and let the forces of darkness decide everything? My answer to this question is yes, there is a solution. First, it is important to identify the core problem. Of course, there are a number of challenges and all of them are real. These challenges could be tackled only after the core problem is solved. I cannot stress enough on the importance of the first step, which is identifying the core problem. Second, we need a realistic assessment of the situation. Dictators appear more powerful than what they really are. In 1979, Iran was called an island of stability under the Shah. And today, the mullah's regime is far weaker than the Shah's regime when it was overthrown. Third, identifying the key players and, in this case, the forces for change. Fourth, being prepared to pay the price to solve the problem. Glancing at the past 3 to 4 decades, it would not be difficult to identify the core problem. There is not a single crisis in the region where the mullah's regime is not involved. From Lebanon to Yemen, in Syria, and in Iraq. Even in the Middle East peace, which is a much older problem, the Iranian regime's destructive role is undeniable. Focusing on the activities of Iran's ruling dictatorship does not require military intervention. The regime's lobby in Washington and Europe attempt to falsely portray firmness and siding with the Iranian people for change as warmongering. On the contrary, their approach and ignoring the problem would be a recipe for disaster as it has been in the past. I believe focusing on the core problem requires the following steps. 1, holding the dictatorship accountable for its crimes against the Iranian people and in the region, including taking steps to bring to justice the perpetrators of the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners, those who stayed loyal to Iran's freedom and were massacred in just a few months on Khomeini's fatwa. 2, taking practical steps to drive the IRGC and its proxies out of Syria and Iraq and other countries in the region. The mullahs meddling in the region is vital to their survival. Therefore, forcing the regime to end its meddling is a major setback to the dictatorship. Khamenei and other regime officials have repeatedly declared that if we do not fight in Iraq and Syria, we will have to fight in Tehran, Isfahan, and other Iranian cities. It is time for practical steps. 3, those benefiting from trade with the Iranian regime are not the people of Iran, but the IRGC. Therefore, comprehensive sanctions, including sanctions on its banking system, must be imposed on the regime. As I said before, the past policies on making concessions to the religious fascism have been disastrous. The peoples of Iran and the region have paid a heavy price for it. The most destructive aspects of this policy were a deal over the Iranian resistance, the terrorist designation of the MEK, and breaching U.S. commitments to the MEK members in Ashraf and Liberty, and inaction vis-à-vis their murder. To end the disastrous past policies, it is essential to recognize the National Council of Resistance of Iran as the only democratic alternative to the religious terrorist dictatorship in Iran.
سناتور بن کاردین رئیس دموکرات‌ها در کمیته روابط خارجی سنای آمریکا در سخنرانی خود در این کنفرانس گفت:
Thank you all very much. The Iranian people have a great history, they're great people, and they deserve a great future. And I thank you for what you're doing to advance democracy in human rights in all parts of the world, but particularly recognizing that torch burns very strongly in Iran by its people, but not its leaders. And we need to support the people of Iran, and we do that by standing strong against the leadership of Iran and what they're doing. So we know that Iran is violating international norms in so many different ways. Iran has made a lifetime commitment against developing nuclear weapons, and it's our responsibility to make sure that in fact is adhered to.
سناتور بن کاردین سپس با برشمردن عملکرد رژیم بعد از توافق اتمی در زمینه آزمایش‌های موشکی و تشدید مداخلاتش در کشورهای منطقه و همچنین سرکوب مردم ایران بر ضرورت تشدید تحریم‌ها علیه رژیم تاکید کرد و افزود:
Iran's violating the ballistic missiles. We know that. And Congress has spoken on that. We passed a statute this year by a 98-2 vote in the United States Senate to impose additional sanctions on Iran for its ballistic missile violations. We need to enforce that not just in the United States, but through U.S. leadership globally to make sure Iran understands that we're not giving them a pass on their ballistic missile violations. And an area which is of great interest to me, December 10th is International Human Rights Day. It represents the 69th anniversary of the passage in the United Nations of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. It's a global interest to make sure people's rights are respected. And in Iran, they violate that commitment, that international commitment to human rights. And we've got to speak out against what's happening in Iran today on the just horrible way they have trashed the rights of its citizens for basic human rights. I've talked to our friends from Europe. I think they're prepared to act more aggressively with us. Let's do that. I think President Trump's interested in moving forward against Iran on ballistic missiles and human rights and arms violations. And then it comes Iran's activities around the world. We know what Iran's doing in Syria with its military presence. We know what Iran's doing in Yemen. We know what Iran's doing in so many other parts in the world, Hezbollah and Lebanon, that we need to again make it clear that that's not acceptable. So I want to make this pretty clear. This is not a partisan issue. We have Democrats and Republicans that are very much committed to all these issues. Iran's leadership is moving that country in a very dangerous path, not just for the Iranian people, but for the region and the world. And we have to stand up to make sure that doesn't happen. And we need to find ways in which we can get unity in our political system and with our allies to effectively block what their strategy is all about. And that's what I'm committed to do, working with my Republican and Democratic colleagues, working with you, and you're here today to show that you will stay engaged in our political process so that our policies are the right policies. Again, thank you for everything you do, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
در ادامه کنفرانس در سنای آمریکا، سناتور جان بوزمن به سخنرانی پرداخت و گفت:
Thank you. I just want to take a second to greet you all and thank you for being here. This is the way that you get change, is by coming and talking and explaining why this is so very important. So I will help any way that I can about various things. And like I said, we just appreciate you being here and appreciate all that you're trying to get done. And we will help any way we can. Thank you.
ژنرال جیمز جونز، مشاور امنیت ملی پیشین آمریکا، سخنران دیگر این کنفرانس بود. وی در سخنانش ضمن ابراز خوشحالی از انتقال پیروزمند مجاهدان اشرفی به خارج از عراق و در همشکسته شدن توطئه‌های رژیم آخوندی به تهدید بنیادگرایی این رژیم برای منطقه و جهان پرداخت و با تاکید بر ماهیت ضد ایرانی رژیم آخوندی گفت:
So let me say that I choose the designation regime quite deliberately. I never try to use it interchangeably with the name Iran. Iran, after all, is a proud and historic culture and society, and Iran is the homeland of an accomplished people. Iran, ladies and gentlemen, will endure far beyond any regime, much less this one, that fails to honor the hopes and aspirations of the Iranian people. I will forever be proud to be regarded as an opponent to the brutal mentality that has worked so hard to snuff out reform in Iran, which has harassed, executed, and arrested Iranian people for daring to speak out, and which has turned its back on universal pleas for reform, and that remains the chief antagonist for democracy and liberalization, not just in Iran, but elsewhere it is struggling to emerge. How ironic that Iran, one of the richest, most accomplished and storied cultures in the history of the world, has been hijacked by oppressors whose only accomplishment is turning a proud country into an international outlaw and making it the globe's greatest threat to peace and stability, North Korea aside. And it is far more than ironic that the backward-focused Iranian regime has exhibited an intense focus on acquiring the most modern and destructive weapons known to man as an instrument of regional domination and intimidation. As we all know, the IAEA reports that the Iranian regime is in technical compliance with the nuclear compact. Whether that will remain the case, I have always had my fears and suspicions, instructed by history and the regime's fundamental nature. Whatever the case, the agency's findings shouldn't divert global attention or outrage from the proven fact that the regime is not in technical compliance or in any other kind of compliance with the norms of responsible international behavior. The obligation not to serially violate human rights and oppress its own people, the obligation not to support international terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah, not to support Bashar Assad with weapons, manpower, and materiel to murder his own people and turn hundreds of thousands of Syrians into refugees, or to destabilize Lebanon or arm the Houthis in Yemen, now lobbing missiles into Saudi Arabia. The obligation not to seek the destruction of Israel and achieve regional hegemony or to reject a peaceful resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot help but acknowledge the plain reality that if weapons of mass destruction come into the possession of this regime, including a nuclear capability, they would most certainly find their way into the hands of the terror groups abetted by their masters in Tehran. This eventuality poses perhaps the gravest threat to global order and the prospects for ever achieving enduring peace and prosperity in this century. Such an eventuality is unacceptable, and it must never come to pass. We know what the Iranian regime has shown us, so let's see what the future will bring.
ژنرال جونز سپس توصیه‌های خود را برای مقابله با رژیم آخوندی و حمایت از مبارزه مردم و مقاومت ایران در چند محور برشمرد و گفت:
Maintain a constant, vigorous, and innately skeptical eye on the regime's compliance, looking closely at how it might try to circumvent the spirit, not just the letter of the nuclear agreement's requirements, and be ready to undertake the difficult but necessary work of marshaling the international community to reimpose sanctions when warranted. Remain focused on a just outcome in Syria, a human tragedy which has so sadly fallen out of page one news as we speak today. Nothing would strengthen Tehran more than to maintain Syria as a proxy and beachhead for regional and global troublemaking, including the establishment of a literal highway all the way from Tehran to Beirut, Lebanon. On that score, the U.S., in my view, must not withdraw from the region and must maintain a presence on the ground to prevent that eventuality from happening. Support of our Arab friends who view Iran as an existential threat to their own survival, and it is, and anything that they do to develop a more capable regional capacity to offset the Iranian strategic goals is something I think the United States should support. We should obviously try to reinvigorate the Middle East peace process, be consistently visible in our support to the Iranian people who hunger for democracy and a government worthy of their heritage and aspirations. So that's the future that we are entering, the future that should serve as a warning to the Iranian regime that their days are numbered, not because of the condemnation and resolve of the international community that will insist on Iran's compliance with international law. They are numbered because Iranians will not cease in their demands for government that reflects their hopes and aspirations. Their fulfillment rests on the establishment of a united, principled, courageous, and organized civic opposition, one that can touch people's hearts and minds, one that can harness their passion and conviction to ensure not only that spring returns to Iran, but the spring blossoms into an enduring season of peace and prosperity. I would hope that everyone interested in such a future would examine very closely the 10-point plan set forth by Mrs. Rajavi about what tomorrow should look like. And let me just remind you what those are. Free and honest elections, pluralism, abolition of the death penalty, separation of church and state, gender equality, rule of law, the protection of human rights, free markets and protection of property, peaceful coexistence, and a nation devoid of nuclear weapons. To me, that's a future that is worth creating. Thank you for being here today and for devoting your voice and your passions to that cause. Thank you very much.